Hello, friends, and welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. My name is Scott Cowan, and I'm the host of the show. Each episode, I have a conversation with an interesting guest who is living in or from Washington State. These are casual conversations with real and interesting people. I think you're going to like the show. So let's jump right in with today's guest. All right, I'm sitting here. I've been planning this for what has it been? 4 years. I've been trying to get you to do this. I am sitting down today with Steve Pearson of the Heats. This is all for me. You guys can just tag along and listen in. Steve, welcome.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
Oh, you say that. I remember the first time I saw you play. I think it was September of 1980 and Bartow Lawn on the campus of Central Washington University. What brought you guys over there? Let's start with that question. What that specific day, why were you at Central?
I have no idea. We just went where we were booked, and that was one of the that was fairly early on, I would say, as we were just sort of starting to emerge. And the two groups of people that seemed to like us best were the musicians first, and then the college kids.
Okay.
Whether it was just because it was something different, and college kids like to be aware of a new trend early on, or whether it's that we resonated with them somehow, I don't know that.
So my other vague recollection, because that was 44 years ago. God. The other vague recollection I have was that you guys seemed physically larger than normal. I mean, you're about what, 6'1"?
6'1", yeah.
You and Dawn, because you were standing up front, you guys seemed taller than that. I don't think the stage was all that high, but you guys, I just remember going, these guys seem like they're really physically like giants. Those are my two memories of seeing you guys.
I'm shorter than you.
I know you are, but I still I just remember this. You guys, the presence that you had on the stage was very powerful.
Yeah, there was something about that band. Part of it was that we were an alternative to what was going on. Both Dawn and I in particular, and everybody in the band, we looked out at, all your Styx and Boston and Foreigner and all those bands, and we said, we don't want to be like that. We don't want to be glorious rock stars with massive hairdos and spend an hour and a half getting ready with our makeup and stuff. We're just going to play rock and roll like we remember it from when we were young.
Okay.
And so we had this very, I won't say arrogant, I will say confident us against the world. It seemed as though we were the only four people that wanted to do this. And in order to do that, we steeled ourselves against everything else that was going on.
Okay.
So we had a great deal of confidence.
Okay.
We thought, yeah, we're something unique. We're something that you haven't seen before. Just watch.
Yeah, that sums it up better than I did. Okay. So we're going to come back to the Heats. I want to talk about you, young Steve.
Okay.
Little Steve, what are we going to call you? When did you first get interested in music?
I think I was always.
Okay.
Though I never thought that I would be one of those people. I thought that I was someone who would listen to those songs, and I'd sing Beatles songs to myself at, 8 years old, 10 years old, however old I was. And that was really the first thing that intrigued me. I remember thinking that musicians were all very uncool because you'd watch Lawrence Welk and you would see whatever the musicians of the day, and I thought they weren't nearly as entertaining as Mickey Mantle or somebody like that.
Okay.
And then the Beatles came along, and I thought, oh, I see. Musicians are cool. That would be the greatest thing one could possibly be. But I couldn't do that. I would never be part of that.
Okay. Obviously, that wasn't a true statement. So
At the time it was. It became something different.
What was the first instrument you ever got your hands on?
I played drums when I was in grade school.
You played drums in grade school?
Yeah, and I wasn't very good. And I didn't really care much about it. It was just you were supposed to, I don't know, you had a couple of different options. You could join band or you could join choir or something. And so I chose that.
Okay. So you played drums?
Yeah, for a couple of years. Like 5th and 6th grade, I think.
What was next?
Nothing. I just stopped and kept playing sports.
And what sport were you?
Well, I played baseball for a while, and then I got to be a teenager, and I couldn't hit a curveball, so that ended that. And then I played basketball in junior high and high school a little bit. I was pretty good at that.
Okay.
And then I hurt my knee, and so that ended.
Okay.
And while I was recuperating from a knee operation, a friend of mine brought by his guitar and showed me a few things. And that was part of my recuperation, I guess, is learning how to play guitar a little bit. But I didn't have any particular talent for it other than I liked it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And about how old would you have been? 16, 17?
17.
17 or
17.
So? What were you going to do after high school?
I didn't know.
Okay.
I went to community college for a year, and then I got a job in a band. A friend of mine, Mark Munson, was in this band, and he said, we're looking for another guy. You could join, you can play rhythm guitar and sing the high harmonies. Okay. That's all you get to do.
Okay.
And I said, okay. And then gradually I got to play a couple of Chuck Berry solos because that's all I could do. And then they would let me sing a song once in a while. And that was sort of the beginning of all that. I might go back and say that being from Kenmore, I had all my friends were musicians.
Oh, really?
There were literally 10, 12 bands at my high school.
Oh.
Brilliant players, guys that ended up in Hart. The band Hart came from Inglemoor High School. Pat Tennis, Don Wilhelm, Dan Abernathy, all these guys, Rusty Smith, they were Mark Willett. I could go on and on. These guys were sort of, I won't say heroes, but way up there in my world. I looked up to them and said, wow, look at these guys can actually play. And not just actually play. They were great.
Okay.
As teenagers, they were great. And once again, I didn't really feel as though I could be part of that. But it just sort of happened, I guess.
All right. How old were you when the Heats got together?
I guess 23 or 4.
Okay, so a couple years, 4 to 5 years out of high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you guys meet?
Well, okay. The Don and Steve story.
Okay.
I was riding around one night with some friends in their car, and we went through the Jack-in-a-Box drive-in window. While we were in line, this guy and his girlfriend hopped in the car with us. It was Don Short and his girlfriend. They were out walking. They said, we need to be in the car in order to order, so they just jumped in the car with us. And I was sitting in the back seat. They hopped in, and the guys in the front turned around and looked at Don, and they said, "Steve, he looks just like you." And so we started talking. It turns out we had many similarities. We were both guitar players in rock and roll bands, and we both thought the Rolling Stones were the greatest thing that ever existed. And we started this rapport, for lack of a better word. I thought Don was a really cool guy. I have no idea what he thought of me, but we started calling each other. And I would go play with Don's friends, and he would go play with my friends, and nothing ever really worked. It felt uncomfortable.
Okay.
Like he felt not comfortable with my gang of guys. I felt uncomfortable with his gang of guys. And then Keith and Ken called me up.
Okay.
Said, "We're thinking about putting together a band to go to Alaska."
How did you know Keith?
We went to school together.
You guys went to, okay, the three of you went to high school together.
Yeah, we all went to the same high school. And Keith and Ken had this grandiose plan. We would go to Alaska and hire a girl singer, and we'd play Fleetwood Mac songs and stuff. And I said, on my list of things I wish to do, that's about 12,695 away from what I would like to do. I said, however, I have these original songs that I recorded. I would like to be in an original band. Okay. I said, I hate everything musically that's going on right now. Let's do something fun. Let's do something original. I have this buddy named Don Short. He came over. We all sat down in the practice room. I don't remember where the practice room was.
Okay.
We started playing my songs. Then Don had some songs. It was great. From the first moment the four of us played together, we sounded just like we sounded the whole time. Don and I sang together. Keith and Ken were a really solid rhythm section. And it just went from there, almost effortlessly.
Okay.
Without even trying, really.
How long from that first night before you guys played in front of an audience?
I don't know exactly. We went to see some friends of ours at a club called the Town Crier in Redmond, and they asked if we'd like to get up and do a couple of songs. Okay. And I remember doing that. Okay. And the crowd sort of wondering, what on earth is this? Mm-hmm. Because we were very, very different. And I think they couldn't understand why we were so confident and full of ourselves and yet so out of step with everything that was going on. And they just sort of were silent after we were done playing. And then that was it. We played a couple of songs and we struggled. We went and played high schools, and then we went to Boise, Idaho to play for 2 weeks and got fired after the first week and came home sort of wondering if we were on the right track or the wrong track. And then we were offered this show out at the Edmonds Rock and Roll Theater, which was a deal where they would play a rock and roll movie like Girl Can't Help It, Rock and Roll High School, Hard Day's Night. Right. And in between the movie, the band would play for a half an hour.
Okay.
Well, one of the guys that ran that, he had friends with the Seattle Times. He was friends with Eric Lasitas and Pat McDonald and all those guys. And he called them up, said, I have this really interesting band. You should come check them out. So Eric Lasitas came out with his photographer, and he liked us.
Did you know he was there?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Okay.
And his photographer took this photo of us, Don and I, singing on the same microphone, and that was the beginning of all of it. Without him, it never would have happened.
I seem to remember reading somewhere, and I'm not going to get it all correct, but Ken and Keith were in a car over in West Seattle. You guys were going to be playing, I think, in West Seattle.
Yeah.
And that newspaper article came out, and they were shocked about where the placement was, and then the line around the building. That one article.
Yeah. Changed everything.
Just overnight.
Yes.
Okay.
I wasn't there in the car. I mean, I've never heard that story before.
It was written somewhere. I read it online somewhere.
My experience was I came walking in the back door of the club, and people started clapping, and I turned around to see who they were clapping for, because it couldn't have possibly been me. And I realized that there was no one there. They were actually, and I guess that shows the whole idea of fame. The people that were clapping had never seen us before.
Right.
They had read in the newspaper that we were something.
Right.
And so they responded in that way, not ever seeing the band before. So that whole experience for me was very bizarre, just like I'm sure it was for all the guys in the band.
Do you remember that night playing?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
How did the audience react to you?
They loved us before we started because they had been told.
Wow.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm saying that that's human nature.
Right.
You hear that there's a happening and you want to be part of it. And so you respond the way that you think you should respond.
It's very interesting because what was that 45, 46-ish years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
The power of the newspaper to take you guys from not obscurity, but
obscurity.
Okay, obscurity to being an overnight sensation, and how long that lasted too, though, in the sense that you guys, whenever I saw you play in the Seattle market, clubs were always packed.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter what night of the week you guys were playing; clubs were packed. You guys had the best crowd, and by that I mean you had the best girls.
Well, it was a combination, I think, of many things. For one thing, once you're told that an event is to be a certain way, you believe that will be it. I think that we resonated with people. It's a word that I used a few moments ago. Because we were so different. And we were, I will say, unaffected.
Mm-hmm.
You know, back then, if you would go out and see a band, they looked fabulous. They had a fabulous stage setup, $500 haircuts and mountains of amplifiers and a drum set that, 50 pieces in the drum set. I'm exaggerating here a little bit, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
We had little amps. We wore blue jeans and tennis shoes or whatever. We weren't a punk band, I don't think, but people thought of us in that way. And they identified we could be their buddies from high school.
Mm-hmm.
They could walk up to us and say hi, and we wouldn't act like rock stars. You didn't have to be a gorgeous girl with, free booze handing to be our friend. We were just And we played a very simple style of rock and roll, which was completely different from the glorious, Carry On My Wayward Son days.
The stadium rock of
Yes,
the late 70s, early 80s.
We were not that. And I think that many people were tired of that and couldn't identify with it.
Okay. Earlier on, you said something, and I want to go back. You said that you and Don thought that the Rolling Stones were the greatest band ever. Besides the Rolling Stones, where did you draw your influence from?
Well, obviously the Beatles and the Kinks and the Yardbirds and all that early, the Byrds, that switch from whatever was before, I don't know, Frankie Avalon,
right,
Neil Sedaka, all that stuff, to sort of a simple but melodic, and especially the two-part harmonies, that really we gravitated towards that and did that naturally.
Okay.
Dawn and I both were very much into harmonizing.
Mm-hmm. Where do you think the other guys in the band, where did they have any different influences in that?
Oh, I'm sure they did.
Okay.
Ken had played a lot of different things. He was probably the most musically sophisticated of all of us. And Keith, too. He was listening to all sorts of stuff. I suppose I had the least sophistication. I was still playing my Beatles and Yardbirds records and going, how did they do that?
Right.
How do they write a song? So yeah, we all had slightly different,
but it kind of
ideas.
It all kind of
it came together. It amalgamated, if you will.
That's the word I was actually struggling for. So thank you. The amalgamation became what kind of gets. I think you hear the genre. You guys get lumped into the power pop.
As good as any.
Yeah, and there was not a lot, but there was a certain amount of bands in that era that had similar stylization, if you will. But the thing, and I've told you this before, I still think your music, I listen to your music regularly now, still, and it still sounds fresh. It doesn't, there's a lot of stuff that came out in any era, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. And you go, oh yeah, that was then. Your guys' stuff and your solo stuff and all that has this, to me, and I don't think I'm alone, more of a timeless nature to it.
As the guy that did it, I have no concept of that.
Do you still enjoy playing your early Heat songs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Surprisingly.
Okay.
So.
All right.
You would think after all these years I'd get tired of it, but I don't.
Okay.
There are exceptions. Okay. I would just as soon never play I Don't Like Your Face again.
I'm surprised you're playing it, frankly.
Well, it's part of the deal. I signed up for this.
You signed up for it.
And I knew last summer that was part of the deal.
Because all the times I've ever seen you after
I've
the
stayed
Heats,
away from that.
I don't think I can ever recall you playing that song.
Yeah.
And that was the song that got the most
notoriety.
Notoriety. Yeah, and it's funny because you have said, that's kind of like,
Well, that's the problem with making statements like that, is that quite often you're forced to, I won't say forced, that's the wrong word. You choose to go back on what you said.
Right.
And I cop to that.
It's a catchy song. It's super catchy. It is. You can, all right. Let's talk about the album that you guys did.
All right.
How did that project come about? Who decided that we need an album? Not an EP, but who said we need an album?
I did.
You did. Okay.
After we played last summer.
I'm talking about the original album.
Oh, the original.
The original. We're gonna come
okay.
back.
Okay.
All right. So you already tipped the. All right.
Okay.
But the original album. Have an idea. How did
there
that
was
get
an
started?
event that happened. We were opening for Heart, mainly on the East Coast in the South. We played in West Virginia, and the morning after we played, I Don't Like Your Face was the most requested song on the radio.
In West Virginia.
In West Virginia, in a town that had never seen us, never heard of us. We were a complete non-entity. And yet that song was the most requested song. Only problem is we didn't have a recording of it.
Okay.
We had no record. And I said, we are fools to waste this opportunity to be out playing in front of thousands of people and have no product. What are we doing?
Right.
And so we got together and said, we need to put out a record.
Okay.
And we were with Ken Kinnear. He was our main manager. John Kurtzer was also part of the team. And Ken couldn't get us a record deal. Nobody could get us a record deal. At that time, virtually every city in the country had a band like us. And nobody, a few guys get deals, we didn't. So we put out our own record. Howard Leese produced it. Ken Kinnear and Albatross paid for it. And we went into K. Smith Studios and did our songs, recorded a record.
So you recorded a full album. That was the first thing. Okay, so you didn't release I Don't Like Your Face as a 45 by itself.
No, it was, that was before that.
Okay.
But I guess that was phase one, was putting out that single.
What was on the flip side of
Ordinary Girls?
Yeah, okay.
And we recorded that with Buck Ormsby. But that didn't really go anywhere, as I recall. Some of my answers you'll have to take with a grain of salt because it's been a long time, and my memory is not always perfect of what happened.
Well, let's go to let me ask you about the Have an Idea album. How long? I know I'm asking very specific questions, and general answers are great. But how long did it take you guys to record that?
Probably 3 weeks, but not every day.
Right.
We'd go in and we were total fools. We had no idea what we were doing. I didn't even realize that your guitar had to be tuned absolutely perfect, or else Howard would go, your G string is out of tune, and I'd say, I don't hear it. You go, tune it up. The song dragged a little bit in that section. Do it again.
Okay.
All those things I had never experienced. You go in to sing, and it doesn't sound very good. It's just crazy.
Right.
We had no idea. Don was a pretty efficient player, just naturally so. The rest of us, that's my phone ringing. The rest of us had a bit to learn.
Okay.
I will say that I had more to learn than anyone else. And that's not false humility. That's just objectively looking at it. Ken and Keith played pretty steady. Don played really steady. I was always, Steve, you're going too fast. Steve, come on here. You can do better than that.
Okay. But still, in the grand scheme of things, 3 weeks doesn't sound like all that long. And to me, and I'm not a musician,
Mm-hmm.
but we've heard stories of bands that 2 years and they can't seem blah blah blah. So 3 weeks to me seems like a pretty reasonable amount of
Mm-hmm.
time. So when that album was released, what did the band do to promote the album release?
I can't remember.
Did you go out? Did you guys tour
remember.
behind it? Did you go on the West Coast tour or anything like that? Or
We just played our regular schedule.
okay, all right.
As far as I know, there must have been some sort of a record release party, but I don't remember it.
Okay.
But we had shows booked forever. We just went out and started playing our shows. And then once in a while, we do one of those in-store things.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were like Spinal Tap. And then others were great.
Mm-hmm.
I have to dig back in my memory. I can remember sitting down at a table and people coming up and sign the record and telling us stories about how that music got through to them. I can remember feeling a little bit uncomfortable with the nice things that people would say. And in my mind, I was thinking, we're just four clowns trying to have some fun here. It's not any big deal. That's what I was thinking at the time. And in a way, I still think that. I still think that people make a bigger deal out of rock and roll and celebrity and all those things than it really deserves.
That's hard to disagree with, but I do think you're being too humble in the sense that for a window of time in the Seattle area, you guys, along with a couple of other bands, in my memory,
Mm-hmm.
you guys owned Seattle. If the Heats were on the reader board, that venue was crowded.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And people were having fun. You guys, your music, your presentation was fun for people for 2 or 3, 4 hours a night that you played. People were having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can discount that. You brought your art, your music brought people happiness.
Yeah, I think that's true. I'm glad that that's true.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is we didn't see it. I didn't see it. I can't speak for the other members of the band. I didn't see it as anything more than just some guys playing rock and roll. Of course, I knew that we were popular. Mm-hmm. I knew that people liked us. I thought it would pass like anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And as I tell people, it's impossible to be a fan of yourself.
Okay.
Right. You can't get up and look in the mirror and go, geez, what a great guy you are. I think that's stupid.
Okay.
So, though I know that things are going on, I choose not to take it too terribly personally and think that I think I was in a great band. Yeah. Really happy, really proud of that. I will never be ashamed of what the Heats did or think it was not good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just sort of anti-celebrity in general.
Okay.
I think that everyone takes themselves way too seriously when it comes to that.
I think another reason that the Heats were as popular was back then there was live music 7 nights a week. So you had a lot of opportunities to perform.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to some of your contemporaries in that era, and that, they bought homes. Playing music locally, they were able to make enough money to buy a home.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't think.
I imagine it depends on the band.
Well, I don't think a lot of venues have music that often.
Yeah.
I think Seattle, and that's where I was at, so I can only speak to my experience. There was always live music 7 nights a week. There was some place that had live music.
Oh, yeah. We were like swinging London there for a while.
Yeah. I claim that I saw you guys perform 7 nights in a row. And I cannot verify that, but it seems highly possible.
You didn't see us 7 nights at the same place.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah,
it was,
we would.
Yeah, I want to say that run was, I think I probably saw you 3 nights at the Hall of Fame. And I want to say, what was the name of the club by the airport?
Was it The Place?
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah.
I can't recall.
Yeah, anyway. So there was a period of time where I saw you guys perform a lot.
It's possible. Man, I don't know if we could have done 7 nights in a row.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I don't know if my voice would have lasted 7 nights in a row.
Okay. So I like to ask musicians some questions. I'm going to ask you these questions, and honestly, no answer is fine. Okay?
Okay.
I want you to think back when you're playing in the Heats.
Okay.
Where was your favorite venue to play as a musician?
That's hard to answer.
Okay.
I would say if I had to choose one place, okay, you get to go back and play one night.
Right.
I would say Astor Park.
Astor Park.
They had a great stage, and there was a sort of a horseshoe thing around. Yep. And I have good memories of that. I also have good memories of the Hall of Fame, a couple of other places.
Okay. The flip side to that is, did you go out and see music being performed? Were you in the audience for shows in that era?
Sometimes, sure.
So where was a great place for you to see bands doing their thing?
Just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I remember going to see the Cowboys at Gatsby's out on the east side in Bellevue there, and having a great time.
Okay.
I loved the Cowboys. They were not only my friends, I thought they were a great band. I remember that. I suppose I used to go down to Pioneer Square and see guys.
Okay.
Almost without knowing or caring who I was going to see. Just roaming around. Obviously, I saw the Pins because I ended up playing with those guys, basically.
Right.
Good fun. Everything was fun in those days.
Right. Going back once again, was there any place in the Northwest that you wish you guys would have played? Was there a venue that you're like, I wish we would have played here?
No.
So you got to play.
We got to do everything we wanted to do.
Okay. All right.
And then some.
And then some. You told me a story, and I can't remember what was it the Yes Festival? The you guys, the PA went out. Was it?
Oh,
was it the Yes Festival?
No. It was called the Oregon Jam.
The Oregon Jam. Okay.
That was in Eugene
at Austin Stadium. Then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And the show was Heart and Loverboy and Blue Oyster Cult. May have been one other band. And because we were with Albatross, with Heart's management company,
right,
we were allowed to open the show.
Okay.
Probably had no business being on that show. But 79,000 people or some ridiculous number like that. Enormous, a sea of people.
So what was that like going from, say, Astor Park to Austin Stadium?
Well, we were a little bit used to it because we'd done that. We had toured with Heart before and played in front of really large groups of people. What you would do, what I did, you just look out and focus on the first, 20 rows of people and play to them.
Right.
You couldn't possibly project yourself out.
Right. And this was before we had AV screens that you would
Yeah.
be 27 feet tall and the people in the back, in the cheap seats, could see you like you were sitting across the table from me.
But what happened at that show was we started out our first song, and the guy on the side of the stage yelled out, "Vocal mics aren't working." And so Dawn and I walked out to the edge of the stage and just played the intro bit over and over and over, daring people not to like us. And then the guy on the edge of the stage, thumbs up, we walked back and started singing.
Okay.
I think that was the greatest moment in the entire history of the band.
Okay.
We could have folded. We could have said, "Wait a minute, everybody." We didn't. And Dawn and I didn't talk about it. We didn't plan it out. We just both knew that this was a moment that we could either take advantage of or fold.
Okay.
And we didn't.
All right. So to kind of summarize my thoughts of what I think you think is that you had a hell of a good time in the Heats.
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course.
And then, as lots of bands do, just it went away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I saw you a lot in the Rangehoods, and I have to blame you for a couple of things in my life. Actually, I'm kidding when I say, well, no, you'll laugh in a minute, I hope.
I'm laughing already.
Yeah, but I want to know the first question. I have two questions I don't know the answers to. How'd you come up with the name? And what was the inspiration for those guitars? Because they're Gibson
Super 400s.
Super 400s.
I can answer both those questions. The name came from the Heats were playing in L.A.
Okay.
Wayne Clack and I went out to see some band. We drove to the address, and out on the reader board it said Rangehoods. And we thought, that's a pretty clever name for a band. We got the joke.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out that the venue was across the street, and that was an appliance store that was selling Rangehoods. So Wayne and I decided that we would have, what do you call it, an alternate project. We were going to do a country western band and sing Hank Williams and Merle Haggard songs as a sort of a sideline project to the Heats. That never happened.
Okay.
And then Pat Hewitt and I got together to form this band. And I suggested that name. Pat Hewitt asked 10 of his friends if they liked that name, and they all said they hated it.
Okay.
So we chose it.
So you chose it.
Uh-huh.
So
That's
you did some
basically the entire story.
So you did some research and went with what you wanted. I like it.
Well, I said, if they unanimously hate it, there must be something there that's memorable about it.
Well, I mean,
so
I didn't know the answer. I didn't know that story. And,
well, the whole idea of cowboy outlaw, okay, Rangehoods, that kind of makes sense a bizarre sort of a way.
It does. And I'm going to sit here and admit to you that I didn't ever put range and hoods together like you just non-verbally did. And now I get it. I always thought it was the
well, that's what it is, but it's a joke.
But the way you just described it, range, hoods.
Mm-hmm.
Now it went. The light bulb kind of flickered. Okay.
And see, I immediately got that joke.
See, and took me 40 years I'm a little slow on the uptake. Okay. Did you have a Super 400?
No. I was working with Pat, and he had this guitar. We had two of them, but one in particular that I absolutely loved. Every time I played it, it was as though that guitar spoke to me. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to get one. And then it became part of our shtick. And it was a good visual image, though I don't think it really changed our sound, what we would have sounded like.
Oh, they were iconic looking, though.
Yeah, it was a visual image that no one had ever taken advantage of, and it sort of harkened back to the rockabilly days, to the Elvis days, all that stuff. And at that point in time, the movement was glam rock, right? Middle 80s, the new glam metal bands were ruling the earth. What could be further from that,
right,
than guys going back playing rockabilly guitars? And of course, as far as we could get from what was happening at the time,
right,
seemed like much like the Heats were.
Right,
the Heats were almost a reaction to a movement rather than a movement. Same with the Rangehoods. We were a reaction to, okay, you're all doing this, we'll do that.
Right. I remember Pat always looked like that the guitar was too big for him, because he's not a very big guy. And, and you're taller, much taller than Pat. And the way Pat would he'd like throw it up a little bit, like he was like readjusting it because it was heavy, and it just, the perception looked like he was always that he had to work that guitar a lot but that band was a lot of fun. The reason I'm going to blame you is I don't know if I've ever told you all of this story, but you guys were playing at Waldo's one night, Kirkland. My roommate Ken Cadu and I got there early, and we were, remember how Waldo's had that one area, it was like a step up. Yeah. We were up there drinking beer, and Mike Wansley's band Boys Will Be Boys was going to open for you, and Joe Kingston walks in with a blonde on his arm, and my statement was, if she has a sister, I'm going to marry her.
How that can be our fault is unimaginable to me.
No. I can tie you to it. First off, careful what you say. But then a few weeks later, you guys were playing somewhere in Ballard. The Owl. What was it was a room I had not gone to before, but you guys were playing it. And I walked in, and you said hi, and you were talking to this woman and this guy, and you introduced me to them, and then you went off. Well, that woman became my first wife, who was the blonde sister, and they don't look anything alike at all. But I'm blaming, no, but there's this connection, right? Okay, so anyway, and my first wife loved the Rangehoods. She absolutely would go see you guys all the time, and that was before she and I met. And now I'd never run into her before, ever. It was so funny how just the way the world works. But I always liked that kind of alternate. It had a harder edge than the Heats. It had more of a country, a lot more, but kind of a alt country, for the lack of a better way.
Yeah, what I guess people now call roots rock, I guess.
Yeah, and that band was a lot of fun. And did you enjoy that band?
Of course I did.
But did you? So the same questions apply.
I know the question you're going to ask, and it's like saying, which of your children do you like best?
Yeah.
I like them both.
Yeah, that's a lie. Because ask me about my kids all the time. I'm just kidding.
Okay. There were aspects about One of the things that I didn't like about the Heats was that it became kind of big business,
Okay.
and we would have to have meetings to decide when we were going to have our next meeting.
Okay.
I didn't like that.
Okay.
The Rangehoods would play, we'd get paid, and we'd sit down like at a card table. And when you'd run out of money, the last guy would get a little bit less than the other guys. It was very, a term I hate, it was very organic.
Okay.
The Heats were more of a big business thing.
Okay.
Which I didn't care for that.
Okay.
And I don't think I offend anyone by saying that. And if I do, you're probably one of the people I didn't like. So too bad.
Yeah, because the Rangehoods had, more of a, I don't want to say organic, but more of a unstructured feel to it. You go to a show and
you didn't know what would happen.
Right. And it was fun, but different.
And I like both those things. I would never deny that I think the Heats was the greatest thing I ever did.
Okay.
Okay. That my first love, my first introduction to what original music could be. On the other hand, the Rangehoods was growing up and doing it in an even more wild, unstructured way, and I loved that too.
Okay.
Only thing I didn't like about the Rangehoods is I didn't like being the main guy. I much prefer sharing that job.
Okay.
I get tired of listening to myself sometimes.
Okay.
And so the Rangehoods was mainly me, mainly my presentation. And the Heats was so great because there's Dawn over there. Dawn's great. And I'm not saying Pat wasn't great, but Pat wasn't sharing Pat was the lead guitar player. With Dawn, I had a dual projection thing, which I very much like.
Right. Okay. How did you, we know how the Heats got started, but how did you get the original lineup for the Rangehoods? How did that come about?
Pat and I had been writing songs together for a while, even during the Heats. And when the Heats broke up, I didn't know what to do. For a little while there, I was completely lost. And then Pat's there. Pat's there to help give me some moral support. Let's write some songs. Let's see what you and I can do. And it became obvious very quickly that we wrote songs together and we were pushing something. We had something to say, I guess. And then we started searching around for guys to play with. And went through a few different guys, everyone who did a good job. Some guys got tired of doing it. The Rangehoods was really an oddball band with, you had to either be on the team or it didn't work. And then it just sort of moved along, and it took a while. My I won't say leverage. I didn't have a whole lot of pull after the Heats. I thought that I would have more, but I didn't.
Okay.
And so we had to go out and beat the bushes just like the Heats did. And then I guess we filled a void. There's always a void somewhere. There's someone who wants something they're not getting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Rangehoods supplied that, much like the Heats did. Same thing. Here's a void. Here's a vacuum. Bunch of guys want to be outlaws. Go see the Rangehoods.
Right.
Bunch of girls are tired of their scene. Let's go out and see the Rangehoods. That's a weird one. Let's go do that.
Right.
That's something different.
Right.
And I guess it's a lot of friendship. People that liked us before, or liked me before, whatever, they would come out. Well, what's he doing now?
Right. Right. You guys were a Miller beer band with the Heats, not with
the
Rangehoods. How'd that come about? Because I remember you guys and the Bodines. Was it the Bodines?
I think they were a different time.
Okay, but somehow I remember
not at the same time, but they may have been one of those bands.
How'd you get the Miller?
Well, we were working with a guy named Robert Bennett, who is a Seattle force of nature who has since passed away, much to the detriment of the world. Robert financed our record. He helped do that. And he was sort of our manager.
Okay.
I won't say he was, just because that would blame him for a bunch of things that he didn't do. Miller Beer was reaching out to different places, and they came to Seattle and said, we're looking for sort of a band that we can pull in that would be rootsy, iconic, whatever. And everyone told them, well, there's really only one band that you would want. So they approached Robert Bennett, and he said to us, do you want to do this? No, we don't want to do this. This is stupid. Come on, you guys. This is going to be good for you. We'll sell more records. You'll have more opportunities to play. And we reluctantly went along with that. And it turned out to be a fairly nice thing. A fairly stupid thing to do, to try and convince the world that a beer company has anything to do with a rock and roll band. Right? The two have nothing to do with each other. It was basically a marketing thing for Miller Beer to say, we're so into this culture that we're sponsoring these bands.
Right.
I don't even drink beer. I couldn't care less about that. I will say that they did what they said they were going to do and were nice to us, and I have no complaints about them. I don't know what they were trying to accomplish, or if they did accomplish that. They helped us a little bit. They got us into some places that we would not have been. They had a drawing, a contest to go to spring break in Florida. And unfortunately for them, we won. We were probably their least favorite band. Lots of funny things happened.
Oh my gosh! All right.
There are stories and stories and stories about crazy things that happened to us. Everything from Pat Hewitt breaking the neck on his guitar in New York to the Rangehoods flying bleary-eyed down to Florida, playing a show down there, having an absolute ball. It just went on and on and on.
Okay.
And every part of it was good.
All right. So as a musician in the Rangehoods, where did you like to play? Because you guys played I don't ever remember seeing the Heats like at Waldo's. So I think
we played at Waldo's. We played at everybody played everywhere.
Okay. Did you like playing the ranch in Ellensburg?
Oh, yeah.
So what was it about the ranch that as a musician you liked?
That's a hard question. I guess I liked the fact that it seemed so rustic.
Okay.
And so you can imagine it being 40 years ago. You can imagine it being the 1940s and you playing at the ranch, and the experience would have been pretty similar.
Pretty similar.
I liked that. I'm sort of romantic about a past that I wasn't part of.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah. No, the ranch was being a Central student, having that off campus was always it was a very fun place. Mm-hmm. It was a very, very fun place. But you guys did, the Heats and the Rangehoods did pretty well in Yakima too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I ever saw either band in Yakima. Where were you guys playing in Yakima? Do you remember?
It was a Chinese restaurant.
Okay.
Great big place. And then we played a couple of other places too, but the main place, as I recall, the Golden Palace or whatever,
right.
One of those type places. That's the main thing I remember. And I was always surprised at how we were popular in more rural areas.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that they would want to hear country bands. And yet the Heats would go there and people liked us and they would come out. We always played there on a Sunday night.
Mm-hmm.
It was an event.
Right.
And the people, pretty much everywhere we went, people were enthusiastic and kind to us. And I don't know what more you could ask for.
Did the Heats do Sun Valley much, or was that just the Rangehoods?
Heats never did.
Okay,
that
so
was
the
just the
Rangehoods.
Rangehoods.
And were you a skier?
Yeah.
So you kind of a great place to go.
I wasn't a very good skier.
Well, no, it doesn't matter. But
what we would do in Sun Valley, and this was great, you'd get there, set up your stuff, play till 1:30 in the morning, go back and crash, get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, ski all day, crash, go play, crash. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Like a vacation, a working vacation, if you will. Yeah. Okay.
And even in the summertime, it was wonderful. Sun Valley was just a great place to play.
Did you guys have much success in Spokane? Or Coeur d'Alene? Did you guys?
Off and on.
Off and on? Okay.
Off and on. I don't think we had as much success in Spokane as we did in Ellensburg, Yakima, that sort of thing.
Did you guys ever play? Did you do much in Tri-Cities?
No. Okay. Hardly ever played Tri-Cities, if ever.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know why, just that's how it worked out.
Well, yeah, I don't know. So then, if we kind of fast forward to, say, the last, let's say, 10 years, you had Steve Pearson's British Racing Green.
Mm-hmm.
You've done, how many solo albums have you released?
3.
3.
Yeah.
Okay. And you did British Racing Green, and that was, you brought Lucette in, your wife, to sing. And John Newton played drums for you. And
well, there were 2 versions of that band.
Okay. So I only know.
The first version was with Tim Moore playing bass and Tony Contrado playing drums.
Okay.
And then that sort of dissipated. And then there was a second version with John Newton and Frank. Yeah.
Okay. And that was my granddaughter still wears her British Racing Green T-shirt that John gave her at a show to sleep in at night. So that's, you're still being repped in Austria, just
Thanks.
so you know.
I'm happy for that.
And then Edie and I went over and we saw you play at Suncadia.
Okay.
So you get credit or blame here for this too. And we had, at that time, we were kind of, me, mostly being me, tired of the West Side. I wanted to change things up. I was tired of the commute. I was tired of what I thought was the gray all the time. Sorry, folks, but that's how I feel. And we've been thinking about where to go. And Chelan had popped up because Edie's sister had a home up there in the past, and so they had fond memories of that. Well, anyway, we go see you play at Suncadia, and Edie started talking to some people there, and they said, "Oh, no, you need to go to Wenatchee," and I somehow I think we might have asked you and Lucette, and because you guys were in the Kashmir, Pashastan area, and we came over, and my first recollection of Wenatchee is I think I was here once when I was in college for Apple Blossom. Like, okay. And then I'm driving down Wenatchee Avenue and I see a place called Wally's House of Booze. And I go, that's a cool name. I like this place. I mean, it was just, that sign just cracked me up. And I've been in Wally's House of Booze twice in 7 years. And we ended up buying a house here. We ended up moving over here, moving my mom and dad with us. It's been a lovely place to live. And you and Lucette, and we would get together once a month or so and go have Chinese food with some of your friends and all this.
Yeah, that was a great tradition that we used to have.
And so we had, we've had this fun. And then you guys moved away. And anyway, but that's the reason, really, the credit for us being here was that somebody, whether it be you, Lucette, or one of your friends at Suncadia, put the bug in our ear to go look at Wenatchee. I don't know that we would have. I was probably leaning towards, I wanted Ellensburg, but we ended, and Edie didn't want Ellensburg because it was too windy, and you guys lied to her and said it's not windy here, because, man, I think it's windy here. It was coming through this canyon. Oh, anyway, I'm kidding. But we moved here, and, we would see your band play around, and then you and Lucette moved away, and seemingly out of nowhere, the Heats decided to do a reunion last summer in 23, and we crashed a 50th high school reunion party that the Heats were playing at. It looks like you were having a really good time. And we don't know what's going to happen. You guys played this high school reunion party, and then you played at the Central Tavern, which I did not go to. By all accounts, much fun was had by all in attendance.
Yeah, that's what started off this whole thing.
Yeah.
Ken called me last spring of 2023. He and Keith graduated in 73. I was the year before.
Okay.
He said, will you come up and play for this? And I said, sure. You're my pal. I do crazy stuff all the time. I'll go up and play a class reunion for a class that I wasn't in just because my buddy asked me to.
Right.
And so as soon as my friends heard that I was doing that, well, then here's another opportunity. Will you sit in with this band and play this high school reunion over here? Will you do this thing over here? Another friend said, will you play a solo songwriter night up in Mukilteo?
Okay.
Sure.
Why not?
An adventure.
Right.
And then I said, well, since we're we're in town. We have to practice and play this show. Why don't we do something in Seattle? And that's how the Central came about. The high school reunion was pretty lackluster as far as people responding to the band. They didn't really care. They never really did. We were their boys, which means they don't.
Right.
How can you be fans of kids that you went to grade school with?
Sure. Okay.
So the Central was so great and so heartwarming, for lack of a better word.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why I always use words and terms that I don't like, but
that's okay.
Here you go. Heartwarming.
Heartwarming.
And Keith, well, shall we do this again? And my response was, yeah, okay. Two things. One, we do a new record.
Okay.
I don't want to be a nostalgia act.
All right.
I don't want to go, oh, look, we're trying to relive 45 years ago all the time. I have new songs. And the other thing I said, I don't want to play for gas money next time.
Okay.
I want to actually get paid.
Okay.
Okay, let's do that. And then Keith said, I want to go back to playing bass.
Right, because he was playing guitar.
He was playing guitar. And do you know a guitar player?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it just so happens I do know a guitar player, John Memolo, who I've been writing songs with for 15 years.
Okay.
Who I think is one of the most fabulous musicians I've ever known. Apart from being a really cool guy and a very positive force. And so we hired John. Ken and Keith had never even met him.
Okay.
And they just said, okay.
Okay.
And then we played a party out at Mark Nafassy's house. We told John, learn these 5 songs. He was great. Of course he's great. He's always great. And that was the band. And then this last spring, in April, we recorded 10 songs, 5 of John's, 5 of mine, which turns into Memolo Pearson, because we just fling our songs together. And we, with the exception of the old Heat songs, we helped each other bring those songs to life. So one guy did most of it, but he and I brought them to life.
Okay.
And the record still isn't out.
Do you know, does the record have a title?
Yeah, The Heats.
The Heats.
Oh, we kicked around a dozen different names, and every single one, whoever suggested it got laughed at by the other 3.
Give me some examples.
I can only think of one. My idea was new tricks.
New tricks.
From that old expression, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Right.
Other guys, thumbs down all the way around.
Okay.
I think John Memolo came up with Heats 3.
Heats 3. Okay.
Which nobody liked.
Okay.
I was ambivalent. I'm ambivalent about most of those sort of things. And so we just said, let's call it The Heats, and put our pictures on the back, and we came up with a cover design, and it's fine with me.
Okay.
I'm not a graphic artist. I'm not really an artist of any shape or form. So yeah, it's fine with me.
All right. And so as the time we're sitting down recording this, the album is in production somewhere.
Yeah.
And
it's at the pressing plant. It's been mastered. It's been gone through.
So it'll be available
hopefully within the next few weeks.
Soon.
Yeah.
We're making air quotes around
soon.
Okay. And is it now that's on vinyl? You're actually doing.
We're doing vinyl and CDs and downloads.
Vinyl, CD, and downloads. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I don't know what download means, but I'm quite sure that it's a a viable way of
it's a viable.
to things.
See, here's the thing: I like CDs, but nobody has CD players anymore. So it's like most cars don't include them anymore.
I love CDs.
Yeah,
they're great. You can toss them in your glove box and you pull it out.
Yeah,
there. Listen to my favorite.
Are you
record.
still driving a Honda Pilot?
Mm-hmm.
See, that's where I listen to my
learned
CDs
that from you.
Yeah, I listen to my CDs and my Honda Pilot. Okay, all right. So we got a new album coming out. We're recording this on a Tuesday. You guys are doing 4 shows up
we've
here.
Done one of them already.
Yeah, and this will come out after that. But so there will be 4 shows. So as we're recording this, you've done your first show.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked you before I hit record. I'll just ask you again. It went to you're happy.
Yeah. It was everything I hoped for. In that it was as fun as it could be, warts and all.
Okay.
Personally, I like the warts.
Okay.
I like those moments where you go, aren't we supposed to end this song now? Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I enjoy the lack of perfection. I know that's an odd thing to say because you pursue perfection as best you can. And then when it doesn't happen, I smile about that and enjoy it.
Well, there's something to be said about, things that are so polished and slick that they're lacking feeling.
Yeah.
And so when you have, in my opinion, when you have a little bit of, roughness, a little that we can file off, if you will, but it's more authentic sounding. All right.
Oh, we're as authentic as can be.
So when you're done after Rumblingers, you're heading back to Arizona.
Yeah.
Does it seem likely to you that this will be just a chapter in an ongoing saga?
I don't know. I think a lot of it has to do with how our new record is received.
Okay.
If people like it and they say this is music that we enjoy, this fills a place for us.
Okay.
Then there will be more. Pretty sure.
Okay.
If people say I'm just rehashing the old Heat stuff, I've heard it. This isn't as good as the first record. It goes to the back of the pile. Then I wouldn't see any reason to do it again.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Now, what you've told me, though, before is when you and I've talked on the phone, you said you're very happy with the way the songs came together. You're very proud of the work that you guys have done.
I like it a lot.
Okay.
Partially because I think the songs are good. But we were forced to do it very quickly.
Okay.
Which fit right in with what I wanted to do. I wanted a rough, no frills, no nothing. This is what the band sounds like. You caught us on a good day.
Okay.
And we did everything very quickly.
Okay.
4 days.
Wow. Okay. That is very
quick.
To do
10 songs that we had never played as a group together before, except 2 days of rehearsals.
Okay. That is very quick.
Yeah.
All right. So you've been up here for about a week or so ish.
Yeah.
You guys been practicing?
Yeah.
Has that been fun? Is
not
practicing
not particularly.
Okay, so
no. Let me rephrase that. I love hanging out with my friends. And playing rock and roll with my friends. It's not fun to say, all right, let's do the intro like this. Oh no. Come in a little bit differently. Do that one little thing. That's kind of tedious.
Okay.
But in order to be able to play and go out and perform, you have to do that.
So where have you guys been practicing at?
At Keith's basement.
Keith's basement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sounds like a really acoustically... No.
It's pretty loud in there.
I bet.
It's a small enclosed place, and you're 6 feet from the drums.
Ooh, okay.
Which is the only instrument that you can't turn down.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, as we're going to wrap this up. First off, again, thank you for taking the time to sit down with me.
Oh, sure.
So part of the shtick on the show is I always ask my guests some questions. So I got to subject you to the same rules, Steve.
Sure.
Question number 1. I'm a coffee drinker. You are too. You said you knew the absolute best place to get coffee on the west side of Washington State. So in Steve Pearson's opinion, where is that place?
Well, it's several, but the place that I go is the Diva in Kenmore.
You like the Diva in Kenmore?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's one on 85th. There's another one down in whatever.
Super solid. What's your go-to coffee drink?
Double tall latte with whole milk.
Double tall with whole milk.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
You wouldn't?
No, I wasn't.
What did you think?
I would have thought you're an oat milk guy. Just kidding. All right. No, Diva's awesome. Okay. So also I'm going to put you on the spot. Well, actually, I'm going to explain why I'm not asking you the second question. Second question is, where's a great place to get lunch? And you said you don't eat lunch out all that often.
Hardly ever.
Okay. So 2 things to go, right? Number 1 is, what didn't we talk about that we should have talked about? Is there anything that we missed?
No, I don't think so. I think I said everything I would care to say.
Okay.
Other than I'm thankful for the opportunities that I've gotten as a result of all this. If not for that lucky time at the Edmonds Theater with Eric Lasitas, I wouldn't be sitting across from you. I wouldn't be married to my wife. Virtually every good thing that's ever happened to me in my life has been a result of that night at the Edmonds Theater.
Okay.
And the newspaper article that came out later that week.
Okay. Actually, I lied. I just thought of a question I want to ask you. So through the years, I've seen you play the Super 400. I've seen you play, I think, a black Telecaster with a white pickup guard. Mm-hmm. You had kind of a bluish Stratocaster.
Mm-hmm.
You played it's not a Telecaster. It's John Newton had that guitar.
It's an Esquire. Which is
those are the guitars and various acoustics. And those are the guitars I think of when I think of Steve Pearson playing guitar. Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite guitar? Because you mentioned that Pat's kind of just
the Super 400.
Yeah, that Pat's specific.
Which I still own.
You still own.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a funny story.
Okay.
A year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, John knows that I loved his 52 Esquire.
Yeah.
Right? It spoke to me.
Yeah.
But it was a multi-$1,000 guitar. Yeah. I wasn't going to own it. Mm-hmm. There's no way that I could explain to my wife that I'm spending mucho $1,000 to
the price
buy
of a new car.
And I already have several.
Right.
So John Newton called me, said, I want you to go up to Chico to look at this guitar. I'm thinking about buying it. Would you put your amp in your car and drive up? It's 750 miles from where I am.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a big ask of him.
And for whatever reason, because I'm such a goofy guy, I said, sure. I got my car and I drove up to Chico, spent the night, got up the next morning and hauled my amp into this little shop and plugged in the guitar. And I played through it a little while. It was great.
Uh-huh.
I called John on the phone and said, John, buy this guitar. It does everything you'd ever want it to do. He said, I just did. It's yours. So the whole thing was an elaborate scheme for John Newton to do something really, really generous and wonderful for me. Mm-hmm. I've loved that guitar if I could have no others, it would be that guitar.
All right.
That he bought me, which it's a 2006 repro of a 52 Telecaster.
Right.
And is actually better than a real 52 Telecaster.
Why? Why is it better? More modern electronics?
No. All that stuff is original, but they were able to set the necks and somehow it plays a little bit smoother.
Okay.
The original guitars have a little idiosyncrasies that make them a little bit harder to play. This guitar plays like your favorite pair of Levi's. Just is. Okay. It just is. And it rings out even when it's not plugged in. It's just a wonderful, wonderful, drive it every day guitar.
Okay. One guitar I've never seen you play is a Les Paul.
Oh, no. I've played Les Pauls.
I don't ever.
It's on the first record cover.
Is it?
I'm playing a...
Is it?
Uh-huh. A 54 Les Paul that I found with a broken neck in a pawn shop.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I like Les Pauls. I like everything,
Yeah.
And I'm a bit fickle, I suppose, like most guitar players. I'll play something for a while, and then I'll try something else and say, why don't I have one of these? But I try and keep it at a very minimum. I'm not a collector.
Right.
I own 4 electric guitars.
Okay. 4.
And 1 acoustic guitar. And
wow, that's
plenty.
Yeah, but compared to a lot of guitar players or musicians in general, that's not a lot of.
And they're all things, either I use them or they're gone. Mm-hmm. Either I take great pleasure in going out and playing them live, or else out of my life.
So what did you bring up here for this?
I brought the Telecaster that John Newton bought me.
Okay. And that's it?
That's it.
That's the only thing you brought? Okay.
John has so many guitars, I don't think he even knows how many he has. So he's supplying the backup stuff.
Okay. All right. So here's the last question. Remember, I told you, you have to answer it and you have to give me your reason why.
Sure.
Cake or pie?
Pie.
And why?
Well, the obvious answer is because I like it better.
No one has given me that response. I love it. I'm counting on you.
Cake. This is ridiculous that I'm going into this. Cake can be dry or mediocre, or the frosting's not very good, or there's too much frosting or not enough. It's so varied.
Okay.
Pie is pretty much always good.
And do you have
a favorite? It goes great with coffee.
Do you have a pie? Are you an apple pie guy, cherry pie?
Like them all, but probably my favorite is apricot.
Really?
Yeah.
You are the first person to say that one. It's so interesting. This is such a silly question, right? And some people are like you, and they're just like, pie, cake. They're just that's a stupid question, Scott. That was and then there's other people who are like, well, I have 2 children. I have to give one up. Which one's it going to be? And then they hem and haw. But nobody has said apricot. That's interesting to me. And there's no wrong answer. That's the beautiful thing.
Yeah. As a kid, we had a connection in Wenatchee. Right?
Okay.
My family, my father's side of the family, and my mom too, all came from Squilchuck.
Okay.
Up in Wenatchee here.
Right.
So we would come over every year during harvest season, come home with a box of apples and some pears. And the apricots were kind of a treat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Very few people grew apricots. There wasn't a lot of money to be made. So
No.
I noticed that was kind of a special thing. And
Okay.
I loved the sweet and sourness.
Okay.
It was a completely unique fruit.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's why I don't know. You want to know why? I guess that's why.
Well, that's a great answer. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no wrong answers here. It's just kind of fun how people, and almost everybody's answer though is kind of comes back to, as a kid, this is what my family did. So if you would have grown up in a house where cake was prevalent, you probably would have, we'd be talking about German chocolate cake or something like that.
Right.
That you grew up with the fruit connection here in the Wenatchee area, and you just gravitate towards it. It's awesome.
And filled with good memories of coming to Wenatchee. That was something we always looked forward to.
Okay.
Well, and I still love this area. I don't want to live here anymore, though.
That's okay.
It's too cold.
It does get. The thing I like about this area is that by the time the season is ready to be over, I'm ready for this. I'm ready. I am welcoming cold weather right now. Call me in February and I'll be welcoming warmer weather. Mm-hmm. We're in the west side. To me, it just seems like it's just, it's 40 to 75 degrees.
Yeah, there are basically two seasons there.
And I genuinely like the seasons that we have here. And like right now, it's wonderful weather. Mm-hmm. It's just wonderful. It's a great time of year to be here. So, Steve, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. We explored some things that I haven't explored for a long time or ever.
Okay.
I don't think anyone has ever asked me in my life which dessert I prefer.
Well, then I've accomplished my job.
I guess you did.
Hope you enjoyed the show. You can reach me on Twitter at ExploreWaState. I'd love to hear your comments. You can also visit our website at explorewashingtonstate.com. If you know anyone who would like the show, it'd be amazing if you'd share the show with them. This is the biggest way that we grow this show. Good old word of mouth. Glad you were here with me today, and I hope to have you listening to the next episode. See you then.